did you make of it, Melissa, first of all?
My initial feeling was this is a very sad scene for two men that have delivered so much for Liverpool, not just in terms of silverware, but moments, shared experiences, joy for the fan base. And to know that Klopp's tenure is ending, not just with results and performances falling flat, but one of the great relationships of this Liverpool transformation also looking like it's disintegrating.
Is it disintegrating, or is it just a little spat and we, the media, love to kind of jump on the back of it?
Frustration and these spats are so normal in football. And actually, I've seen the same manager have it out publicly with Jordan Henderson and James Milner. I think because it's Mohamed Salah, who is such a huge figure, because of the timing as well, with this being 3 games from the end for Jurgen Klopp, Salah having a year left on his contract, there'll be a decision for the club to make. The timing, I think, makes this a bigger issue than it ordinarily would have been. And as I said, my overwhelming feeling about it is a sense of sadness because it was a great story and it doesn't deserve this kind of ending.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Although the interesting thing for me personally is that Mo Salah, we know what he's like. He doesn't talk a lot, but he chooses to say, if I speak, there's going to be fire. Yeah. So that was for me a little bit more telling, even though Jurgen Klopp, meanwhile, was quite busy in the press of saying, look, actually, we've spoken, it's resolved, it's done.
And there's a lot to kind of pick through in terms of the dynamics of that, because Jurgen Klopp's in a press conference talking to some of the journalists and saying, look, there's nothing in it, we've spoken, it's fine. But after matches, what happens is some of our colleagues, they go into the press conference, some choose to go into the mix zone instead and get what we call follow-up quotes for the Monday editions of the newspapers. And that section of the media contingent that go into that mix zone, over the years, it's become more and more multilingual. So if somebody were to come through, I don't know, 15 years ago, for example, and said something, maybe it might not have been picked up. But obviously, because there is that change in the mix of people who are in those mix zones, as the Premier League has become much more multinational, there was in that instant understanding, and that clip went viral after the match. You can see it there. And it was immediately interpreted and I was going to say understood, but of course there are lots of different people who interpret it in different ways, and it's very important to make that point because, as Melissa says, on the one hand it could be seen as a really incendiary, and on the other hand, as you've suggested and a couple of our colleagues have done, it was said in a very playful way. So we'll get into it a little bit more when we do the newspapers, but I think the mechanics of what happened yesterday were very, very interesting indeed.
It's interesting, we've been speaking about Mo Salah a lot this week anyway, about his contract as well. Do you think this could be the end of him in terms of his Liverpool career?
It feels like it, because with a year left, there's a decision for him to make and the club to make. Now, I know people have said, and it is true, he's looked so off colour since his injury and coming back. He's not posting the numbers and the standards that he expects of himself.
Even Klopp has said that himself.
Let alone anyone else. So you're still talking about a guy, though, that is the top scorer. In this recalibrated attack, he is still having to shoulder a lot of the goal-scoring burden, even though the system no longer suits him as it once did and doesn't play to his strengths as much. He's further away from goal. And this is a man who's also contributed 296 goals directly, indirectly with assists in like 346 appearances for Liverpool. He is a bona fide legend. He is unbelievable. And I know there's a lot of talk of the Saudi Pro League. They do want to make him their poster boy. But there'll be a lot of top clubs that he'll still walk into the starting lineup for. And they'll be circling and make him offers the summer. There's no doubt in my mind, because Mohamed Salah is still a Champions League player. He'll know that, he'll believe that. Other clubs will see it, and I think he'll still be at the very top end of this elite game. It would be actually quite sad if his ending was to go to the Saudi Pro League, because I still think there's a lot of top quality football left in him.
I think that's a key word, you know, sadness. Because when I watched it, I didn't think, oh my word, look at it. I did think that's so sad when you look at the two of the big personalities in the last 10 years in the Premier League, and the moments they've given us, and the title races they've given us, and the way that they disrupted City's winning streak in winning the Premier League title. All of those wonderful moments that they gave us, it would be a real shame if the last thing we remember of either man would be that. I think that we'll see what happens over the coming games, but how does Klopp react to that? Does he continue to play Salah? Does he drop him? We don't know. But either way, I think what they've given this league, it will be a real shame if we were to lose either man.
I mean, for me, knowing what I know of Jurgen Klopp, I don't think for a minute he would just drop him and there would be this big hoo-ha about this for the last few games. I just don't see that happening. However, you can never say never. Look, this was meant to be the final hurrah. You know, only a few weeks ago they were on for a quadruple. That's gone now. Jamie Carragher wrote his analysis for the season on SkySports.com, and he said it promised to be, this season has promised more than it's delivered. Do you think that's a fair comment?
At the start of the season, I don't think the expectation was that Liverpool would go and sweep up silverware. I think it was very much, this is a team in transition. The midfield has been rebuilt. The attack is still trying to find some chemistry with each other and coordination. And there's a lot of young talent coming through. So the word transition was used quite a lot. And then I think in the first half of the season, they actually over-delivered, and a lot of it wasn't sustainable. You know, we saw young kids stepping up in the absence of key players. I mean, Liverpool spent a lot of the season without Alisson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and really Andy Robertson, the core and the backbone of the side. But you had youngsters coming in and stepping up and doing remarkable things, and you know, there was that feeling of, wow, there's some sort of destiny at play. And once Jurgen Klopp makes his announcement, then there's this emotional swell of, it could actually be the fairy tale ending. But I think that was the romantic idea, and when you look underneath it all, it can't be sustained that kids can keep stepping up. It can't be sustained that you can continue to concede first and rally and win the game. It just doesn't set you up.
Just very quickly, what do you say to the people who are watching this who say, hang on a minute, you media guys, you called Arsenal chokers or whatever, you know we don't like that word, or bottlers or whatever, and yet you're going easy on Liverpool. What do you say to that?
I never called Arsenal chokers. I didn't believe that any of the stick Arsenal got last season was justified, because they were a team building towards actually the point they are now. And even if they don't win the title this season, again, they've not bottled it. They are developing. You have to get close before you actually do it. And I don't know why people pretend that Manchester City are not this absolute juggernaut. That by default, when we start every season, we all look at it and say, City are going to win the league. We expect them to. It's nature, it's habitual for them to do it. So any team doing all the right things in terms of recruitment, in terms of changing their culture, to try and get close and really push them, is a testament to that team. And I don't take anything away from them if they try and fall short. If Arsenal don't do it this season and people call them bottlers, there's no point to football.
Yeah, I agree.
Because honestly, the journey that they've taken their supporters on, how they've advanced this season is just, it's phenomenal. And Liverpool, when we talk about it, we need to go back and look at the predictions at the start of the season and look at what people said before any ball was kicked or after the first few weeks.
Yeah, they've had a terrible season, by their own admission, last season.
But I think that Liverpool are a model for recruitment, for culture. We've talked about that many times on the show before, the way that they've brought players through, because other clubs, and we can't now be hypocrites, other clubs said we've had injuries, and we've said, look at Liverpool, look at the way that they brought through Conor Bradley, brought through Jayden Dance, Bobby Clark and Daryl Kwanzaa, and they've just made it work. They were winners in the Carabao Cup final against Chelsea, and we used them as the barometer for what other clubs could do when they had problems. So I don't think we can go too far the other way now and suddenly start being extreme about them. Liverpool 2.0 have done well to get this far.
OK, look, you teased it a little bit a moment ago because you were talking about Jonathan Northcroft in terms of the Liverpool papers. I just want to go back to Liverpool because we've got lots to discuss about it. But I do want to bring something in live because we are a live show. This is the paper. We will look at that in just a second. The reason why I want to say live, because I think Jamie Carragher is watching right now because he has tweeted and he said this. So this is fascinating. He said, Mo Salah and Jurgen Klopp are both Liverpool legends. We don't need to take sides. Salah is frustrated and angry with Jurgen that he's not playing and at that moment didn't want to fully embrace the boss. Jurgen understandably took exception. Mo was daft with his comment in the mix zone, but let's them sort it out and enjoy the last few weeks together. They've been a massive help to each other in all that's been achieved at the club.
I think he's absolutely right. I think, and it's exactly what we said. It would be a real shame if the remaining weeks of these two Premier League icons, I would suggest, is dominated by trying to take sides between the two of them. I know there have been some people on social media who've gone for Salah, which I think is incredibly unfair when you consider, and actually quite a surprise given what he's done for the club and what Klopp has done for Liverpool. You couldn't even begin to encapsulate in the 2 hours of this show. So I think Jamie's absolutely right. It was sad to see yesterday, but hopefully they will be able to patch it up and we can move on.
Yeah, what do you make of Jamie Carragher's tweet then? Do you agree with that?
I think he's spot on. There's no point taking sides. It's the word we used was sadness for both of them. And, you know, you speak about what they've individually delivered for Liverpool, but also what they've given each other. Klopp gives Salah the platform to resurrect his career in England. You know, he was seen as a Chelsea flop. And now he's seen as one of the greatest ever to come and play in this country. And also what Salah helps Klopp enable to do in terms of his rebuild and delivering that success to Liverpool. And together with the entire collective, the moment and the journey they've taken that fan base on has been extraordinary. So I think Jamie is right in terms of look at the full picture, don't just look at that incident and, you know, these last few games left in how we talk about them.
All right, brilliant. Good to get a little bit more from Jamie Carragher today.